Hello guys, and welcome to another video on my channel. In this one I'm going to show you how to perfect the Yas Marina circuit, and we are going to do this by doing the Yas Marina circuit experience, which is in this Ferrari 296, the brand new car in Group 3 in the Spec 3 update. So what I'm going to be showing you is each section of the circuit experience. So there's 3 sections, which is basically the first sector, second sector and third sector of the circuit. I mean, first sector has the first corner of sector 2 as well, but other than that, it's basically at the sector points for each section of the track. So I'm going to go through each of the sections, and what I mean by that is I'm going to show you the replay of those laps with the detailed explanation of what I was looking for in terms of references and what to do with the car. So I'm going to be doing that for all 3 sections, and then I'm going to do the full lap guide. You know, it'd be similar references and that, but because of where you start in some of the sections, you'll be going slightly faster on the full lap. If following my tips anyway, you would be. And then in that case, the braking points may change a bit. So I'm going to go through the whole lap as well. So I'm going to do section 1 detailed, section 2 detailed, section 3 detailed, full lap detailed, and after all those, I'm going to show you my best attempts at the end of the video with section 1, section 2, section 3, and the full lap, with no commentary on anything in the background, just me and my driving for those times that I did. I will mention as well, if you just want to go straight into the full lap detailed lap guide, then I will put a pinned comment in the comments where the full detailed lap guide starts. So without further ado, now I'm going to go into section 1, which is the first sector of Yas Marina plus the first corner of sector 2. If you enjoy and find it helpful, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe as well. I'm going to carry on doing guides, and yeah, hopefully this will help you guys. So let's get into it. Okay guys, so this is the first section of the Yas Marina circuit. So it starts us basically on the start finishing line. Before we get into turn 1, I will mention that this is without BOP. So this Ferrari, I believe, has around 599 horsepower without BOP. So what I'm trying to say is, especially on the racing hard tyres that it's giving you, the car will oversteer a lot on entry. Not on entry, sorry. It will oversteer a lot on the exit. So be very careful with your throttle inputs. But I'll try to describe how much throttle input I plan to use out of each corner. One more thing, rev this car towards the end of the bar. When I say that, I mean as it starts, as you can see right now on the screen, I'm on about 90% revs on the middle of the screen with the bar above the 3 for the third gear for 180 kilometers an hour, that thing, below the red dot. I'm basically shifting at this point to either now or as it gets to the end of the bar. So as soon as it gets there, you need to shift up the gear, because that's where the peak power of this car is. So yeah, that's where I'm with it, and yeah, let's go into it. So first corner, you see this 150 board, we go past it. By the way, I would recommend manual if you know how to use manual gears, because you need to dictate the gears you want to use as you're braking and where you're exiting, because some gears, maybe not in particular in section 1, but throughout the lap, you will need different gears compared to what automatic will give you. So, first corner, see this 150 board, I'm braking at the beginning of this curb after the 150 board. So I'm gonna go here until you see my ABS light flicking on. There you go. As you can see, I am right on the entry of the curb. That is my braking reference for turn 1. What I'm trying to do is I'm braking in a straight line all the way until I get down to first gear, which will be around 75 miles an hour by the time you downshift to first. As soon as you downshift to first, you'll be turning left, and I plan to basically use the whole inside curb, but I'll pause it on the apex just so you understand what I mean. So I'm planning to do this corner at around 70 miles an hour. So right here, you see this orange curb here. Try to get as close to this barrier as possible, but the main thing is don't touch with any of your tyres, well, your left tyres, because if your right tyres was here, you'd hit the inside barrier. But with your left side of the tyres, don't hit this big part of the orange curb, especially on controller, because on controller, the game the game basically stops your steering if you hit a big part of a bump. I don't know why it happens, but basically every time I hit that part of the orange curb, the game would stop me steering for like a tenth of a second, and that tenth of a second meant I was having to do a big lift before I could go back on throttle, and or I'll just go too wide and invalidate the lap. So plan to get as close to this barrier as possible. If not, just at least miss this big part of the orange curb. What you're going to be doing here is exiting third, and you're going to be wanting to do initially about 50-60% throttle just to pick up the speed without having wheel spin. But as soon as your car starts to straighten out, go full throttle. This corner, actually quite difficult to perfect in my opinion, but I basically turned as soon as this track lines moved to the left. When I say track lines, I mean this grey line here, the racing line. I basically turned as soon as that turned to the left, and you plan to get as close to this inside barrier as possible as well. So I do a small lift. I aim to be about 108 mile an hour here, and then I'm going to be about 60%, 70% throttle just to again pick up the speed without having too much wheel spin on the exit / oversteer. Here, as soon as just before the entry of this curb, you turn to the right, and I'll pause it here. So now I've just started to turn to the right, so I didn't really have a reference for this, to be honest, but what I did is as soon as I went past this, I waited for about half a second before I started to turn right. And what you're going to be wanting to do on this corner is get as close to the grass as possible. You can abuse the track limits a lot on this track, so make sure you do it. I'm planning to be about 105, 106 mile an hour on the apex here. So right here, I've just gone over the bollard. That is fine. That's not an invalidation, but like I said, get as close to this grass as possible because that is where the grip is. You may experience a little bit of oversteer since you're technically off the track with two wheels, but it doesn't invalidate you, and it's still faster doing this line than having two wheels on this curb, for example. Like, for example, if you had your right tyres here on this part of the curb, yes, it would open up the corner a bit, but you just understeered off, and you're not minimising the distance either. So get as close to this grass as possible. Just be careful. Make sure you're in fourth gear as well, because if you're in third gear, you'll oversteer too much. So fourth gear, be about 60% throttle, as you can see on my screen. As soon as you get off this part of the track, so as soon as your right wheel touches this curb, you should be able to go full throttle again. Make sure you stay within the right lines. And this last corner of section 1, this is 100 marker, this is the end of the curb. I'm braking directly in between the 100 mark and the end of this curb. So I'm braking probably around here. That is where I'm braking. And what I think you should do, what I personally like to do, is I like to basically turn it as soon as I start to brake, just so I'm minimising the distance. Plus, I found if I started to turn in a bit late, I just understeered a bit, and I'd have to be very slow on the minimum apex speed to make sure I get around the corner and getting a good exit. This is why I prefer taking the tight line in this corner and just playing around with the throttle to try and get that little bit of extra rotation and get a good enough exit to, not compromise my exit too much by going an early apex here. So I'm going to pause right here as soon as my ABS light is showing. There we go. As you can see, just before the end of this curve, so I would say about 2/3 after the 100 marker. About 2/3 for car length after it. Maybe even a car length after it. Yeah, I'll say car length after 100 mod. That's where I'm braking for this corner. Like I said, I'm going to be turning early because I want an early apex. As you can see, I'm saying 100% brakes because I need to slow the car down to do the early apex. I'm planning to do this corner around 51 mile an hour as well. I went a bit deep, unfortunately, and missed it inside curb. But what you'll see in my full lap is I will be trying to aim to have my left tyres just touch this inside curb, if not very close to it, because that's where the grip is. And it's a very wide exit, so you can get away with an early apex, is what I'm trying to say. Be extremely careful on the throttle here as well. It will want to oversteer a lot, so you need to put very little steering input in. if you're wanting to go full throttle here. And try not to move around your steering too much as you get on the power, because that's when your car will oversteer and not be stabilised. So just be very careful here. You saw this exit curb. As long as your left tyre doesn't leave this white line or curb, it won't invalidate you. And you need to make sure your left tyres rejoins the track before you get to the end of this curb, because otherwise you'll invalidate your lap time as well. Take the short line, and that's a 37.094, which is, I believe, 2 seconds inside the gold range. Either way, that's how to do the first section of this video, of this track. So now I'm going to go into section 2. Okay guys, so this is section 2, and this is, in my opinion, on the controller, by far the hardest section of the 3. Even though it's only 2 corners, if you were to do these 2 corners incorrectly, on the controller especially, you will lose tenths, a lot of time on controllers. I can't say the same for real, because I don't use the wheel, so I don't exactly know what they're like over these sort of curbs. But on controller, it stops you steering, so you need to make sure you either cut it a lot or not too much that you hit the big part of a bump. But I'll get into that in the corners itself. So, braking reference for this corner, see this 200 marker, see this 150 marker. I'm braking around the 170 meter. I'm braking about halfway between two, a bit past halfway between two. So I'm planning to brake about 170 meters into this corner. I've seen people use the extra part of the track with their right wheels on this blue part. I found that I just went deep every time I did that. It's like you got dirty tires a bit from it. So I wouldn't recommend doing it. I prefer just to brake in a straight line and not use the outside curve or anything, because I want to maximize my braking performance. Yes, I won't maximize the entry angle, but I'd rather have good braking and make sure I actually stop by the time I get to the corner. So 170 marker is when I'm braking here. I will pause as soon as my ABS light shows up. There you go. As you can see, 200's there, 150's there. As you can see, that is about 170 meters. You could probably brake a touch later, but 170 I found consistent. So braking a straight line all the way down to about 42 miles an hour. Like I said, you either want to cut it a lot or not too much. I think as long as your right side of the tyres is touching either the red or white curb, the orange, or the second part of the red and white curb, it will not invalidate you. So make sure your right tyres are at least touching a part of the curb. So ideally, what you want to do is you want your right wheels to touch this part of the curb. As soon as your front right tyre leaves it, it'll go onto this little orange part of the curb, but your rear right is still touching this red and white curb, so it won't invalidate you. And again, by the time your front right tyre leaves the curb, the orange curb, you'll be going onto the red and white part of the curb, and your rear tyres will still be on this part of the curb, if not the orange curb. So basically cut it as much as possible, just to, you know, open up this next part of the chicane, which is an extremely important exit to get right. So you can do what I'm going to be doing, or if you don't want to risk it too much, make sure you have your left tyres inside this big part of the orange curb and your right tyres off this orange curb, just so that you don't bounce and lose steering on the controller. So I'm going to pause it on the apex, just so you can see what I mean. So I'm going to go here. As you can see, my rear tyre's on the curb, but my front right tyre is just on the edge of this orange. So I'm going to go forward 3 frames or so. As you can see, my front right tyre has just gone onto this red curb, as my rear tyre has left curb. That is about the absolute max you can cut this corner. And it doesn't bounce you, because as you can see, I'm off this big orange curb here. So I'm not bottoming out here, as you can see. It's very close to bottoming now, but not quite. So try to cut it as much as you can, but very difficult to do. So by the time you get to this point, as you can see, I'm already about 20% throttle. Just pick up the throttle gently, not 100%, just so you pick up the speed. Now, unless you get into a straight line, you can maybe go 100% throttle, but I don't. I get about 60% throttle, just pick up the speed and not have too much wheel spin. As soon as I get to like 2/3 of the way on this straight line, I turn to the right. So right here, Basically, as soon as my car has straightened out, I'm turning to the right. I'm planning to do the same for this second curb as well. Cut it as much as possible. Aim this corner to be about 55, 56 mile an hour. I had a bit of oversteer here. So, like I said, missed this big part of the orange curb. As long as one of your tyres is touching either side of the curb, it won't invalidate you. As you can see, quickly, I'm just inside the orange curb. That is the perfect line to do. Unfortunately, though, I do mess up this exit. So, like I said, I mean, 94 kilometers an hour right now. That's about 56, 57 mile an hour from memory. That is how much speed you want to take into this corner. 40% fall is enough to stabilise your car going over this bump as well. I was a bit too eager on full throttle, so as you'll see, I think I had to lift and I had a bit of oversteer. So I'll probably lose a tenth here. Yeah, I had too much overspin. I'm diving our line. As long as your right tyres is inside this right on the right side of this right line, it won't invalidate you. That's a 17.290. A good section 2 time, but I think there's a 10th in it for me. But now onto sector 3. Alright guys, so now we're on to section 3 of this part of the video. So you could either just stay in 5th and ref it out, but I prefer to do an extra downshift. So I'm going to upshift to 6th gear here as soon as I get towards the end of the bar. And here, use this outside curve just to open up the corner a bit more. There's this 100 marker here. I break a car length after it. I've just gone past it. I apologise. So let me play around with this. I will say right now, it's better to go deep than early apex here because of the way the banking works. As you can see, I'm about half a car length after this 100. I do think I could break a bit later here though. So I think a car length after 100 is good enough to make the corners relatively well still. So, like I said, it's better to go deep than hug the inside here just because of the camber. The more you go towards the outside, the more camber there is. So you have more traction basically, and you can carry more speed. And because you've got more of an angle and the camber's helping you get around the corner, you can go on the throttle earlier if you go a bit wide here. But don't go too wide because you'll just understeer and there's no grip if you go too wide. So basically, as soon as I'm braking, as you can see now with the red dot, I'm already turning to the left. That's because I'm planning to have my car go like this. If you follow this mouse, I'm trying to just clip the inside curb here and let my car coast into a corner as soon as I get to that point. Down to around 66 mile an hour. By then, I should be halfway between the left side of the track and the right side of the track, which is enough of an angle where I can go pick up the throttle in 4th gear and not have much of a traction issue. I may get a little bit of oversteer, but it depends how much steering angle you put in. So, braking heavily. So as soon as I get to this point and downshift first, I'm going to be starting to trail brake a lot more, just to not go too deep and not turn. Use the camber here. As soon as I get about halfway around this corner, as you can see here, I'm about to get to halfway point. I upshift to 4th. As soon as I upshift to 4th, and I'm around 65, 66, 67 mile an hour, I'm going to be going full throttle here in 4th gear, because in 3rd gear you'll oversteer. In 4th gear it picks up the speed nicely, and you don't have wheel spin. So go 4th gear here. Try not to touch this inside curb as well, because I found that when I touch this inside curb, I just oversteered. So get close to this curb, but try not to touch it. And be careful when you get to this part of the track to not put too much steering in. I start to turn a bit less just to make sure I don't have too much oversteer. Again, if you are wide of this curb, just make sure you put less steering in so you don't have too much oversteer. Here, be a car width off this right line here, just to open up this next part of the corner. As soon as I got to around this point, I lift. Any second now. There you go. I broke actually at this point. Okay, so I broke. I don't know how best to explain it, but basically, you just get used to it with the amount of attempts you did. You found out whereabouts you wanted to lift. This Marshall is probably a good reference. Probably a good 2 car lengths before this Marshall. That's a good reference point to start trail brake slightly. And you don't want to brake a lot, because if you brake a lot, your car will go in a straight line and you'd understeer off the track. So you need to trail brake here. Just a bit though, down to about 130 miles an hour by the time you get to this apex here. Try to get as close to this inside barrier as possible as well. Right here. As soon as I got to this point, I started to do about 50% brakes until I got to this barrier and I went 100% brakes. So I'm going to carry on a bit, still 50% brakes. As soon as I got to this point, which is around 120 miles an hour, any second now, as I start to straighten up, I believe is when I start to put full brakes. There you go. So as you can see, as soon as I get towards the outside curb and my car starts straightening up, I go 100% brakes. Try to use this outside curb, but not too much, because it can unstabilize your car. Be careful as well, don't downshift too early into first gear. Because if you downshift to first gear, your car will oversteer just because of the... I don't know how to exactly explain it, but it just unstabilizes your car. So it's better to slow downshift in this corner. I felt my car was stabilized, which is why I downshifted first early on this occasion, because I felt I broke a bit early, which in fact I did break a bit early. So you could either have your left tyres touch this curb and cut it, or have your right tyres ride this curb basically. So basically touch this inside bollard and just, you know, use the normal racing line. But like that. That's basically the normal racing line. You can cut this corner though, definitely can, and it might even be faster. This corner you want to be about 55, 56 miles an hour if I remember correctly, and you want to exit in second gear, but be careful on throttle. Be about 50, 60% throttle here. As soon as my car straightens up, I go full throttle, and about half a second later I'm turning to the left. You can cut it again, but I felt that there was less grip cutting it at this point, so I did the normal racing line, have my left tyres go over the inside curb and just coast it basically. I played around the foot a little bit. You want to be this wide, if not even a bit wider, just to open up this next part of the corner here. Aim to be about 70 miles an hour and try to cut this corner, because you need to open up the exit as much as possible, just so that you can pick up the throttle very nicely and very early. So like that, you want to cut it this much. Get as close to the barrier basically. Stay about 80% throttle, because it's enough that the turbo doesn't kick in and oversteer you. As soon as my car straightens up, I go full throttle. Veer off to the left immediately, and as soon as I get to here, where you see the track lines like in turn 2, I turn to the right here. Try to cut the inside, but obviously don't touch the inside barrier. If not, just do the normal racing line and have your right tyres inside the curb. And you want to be about 108 miles an hour, and you will be exiting in 4th gear as well, so it is faster and less scary. And for the last corner, quite hard to pick out at the time, but basically in bumper cam, as soon as this barrier goes off your screen, that is where you're braking. So it should be any second now, like that. There you go. As soon as the barrier on your right leaves the screen, brake, stay on the outside here just to maximize the angle for this last corner. You want to be slowing down to about 64 mile an hour range as well. Try to cut as much of this inside curb as possible as well, just so that you can pick up the throttle extremely early and basically just minimize the distance to the finishing line. Use all the outside curb exit just to again pick up the throttle earlier and, you know, maximize the speed you can carry into the corner basically. Make sure your right tyres rejoins the track before you get to the end of the curb as well. And that's 46711. I believe that was a current top 10 in the world at the time of recording when I did this section 3. So I was very happy with this. In fact, this is probably my strongest sector for 3 on this track. But now, full lap guide. Okay guys, so this is the full lap guide for this track. In case you didn't see the first 3 sections of this video, I'm going to be going basically over the references for braking, the throttle, etc. If you've watched the first 3 sections of the video, then it'll be very similar. 1 or 2 corners will be slightly different in braking, references just because of the amount of speed you carried from previous corners in relation to what the AI is doing at the start of each section, etc. So, I will mention one more thing as well. I did not mention this before, but the braking balance I used for this, it was +3 brake bias to the rear. The reason for that is because I want as much rotation as I release the brakes as possible. Well, not as I release the brakes, but while I'm braking, I want the car to not oversteer, but, rotate nicely into the apex of a corner. If I went any lower than +3, so +4, +5 to the rear, my car would oversteer too much as I was braking, and the car would start to slide too much for my liking. But I would basically have to counter steer to make sure that I wasn't losing the car. So I went +3. You can go +2, +1 as well. In fact, in section 1 of the video, I was using +1 brake balance. That was before I found out the brake balance I wanted to use for this car. +1 felt very nice to me as well, but I would recommend +3 if you can handle it. So, I won't spell the lap time I did yet. So, start of the lap, like in section 3. I'll go back just so you can see. Like in section 3, to start the lap, slightly differently to what you do in section 3, but basically as soon as this orange part of the bar starts to disappear from your screen, you brake here. Have your right wheels go as close to this white line as possible just to maximise the entry angle for this corner, just so you can pick up the throttle earlier and carry more speed. So you start the lap faster. So like that. As soon as this curve starts to go to the right, that's when you turn to the right. At this point you want to be about 62, 63 miles an hour. Try to cut the inside of this curve as possible to have your left tyres on this inside curve. If not, just do the normal racing line and make sure you pick up the throttle nicely. Go about 50-60% throttle, that's enough to pick up the throttle nicely without having oversteer. Because the turbo is not kicking in. But as soon as your car feels like it's about to straighten out and you put less steer in it on the exit of this corner, then you can go 100% throttle. Use all the exit curve, and this is to start the lap. Like I said, shift 100% to 95% area, because that's the peak power range for this car. First corner, I brake in at the entry of this curb. My brake lights just come on, and I brake a touch early. Basically, you want to brake as soon as the front of your car gets to the right part of this curb here. I'm braking a straight line, and as soon as I get to around 80 miles an hour, you'll see me start to turn, and I'll be downshifted first just to get more engine braking and more rotation into the corner. And try to get your left tyres as close to the inside barrier as possible. You want to do this because you want to avoid the big orange curb in the middle of a corner. On controller, if you touch a big orange curb, your car will stop steering momentarily, which is enough to massively affect the exit of your corner. Apex speed for this corner, around 70 miles an hour. Be about 60% throttle initially, just to, slowly pick up the speed without having oversteer, but as soon as you're having to put less steering in, go 100% throttle, as you'll see now on the video. Right here, turn to the left as soon as this track lines go to the left, and just do a small lift here, down to around 108 miles an hour. Get as close to the inside barrier again, because that's just where the grip is, and plus it opens up this right part of the next corner in sector 1. But this point onwards, I'll quickly go to race photos. As soon as you get past this little darker part of tarmac here, about half a second later, go to the right and cut as much of this right hander as possible. Do a small trail brake. I upshift to throttle early just to stabilise the car. Get as close to this grass as possible without touching it if possible. And basically, as soon as you get past this bollard, you start to pick up more of a throttle. So initially, you go about 40% throttle, because that's enough throttle to stabilise your car without having oversteer and to pick up speed slowly. As soon as your right tyre gets off this part of the track, as soon as it gets onto this red and right curb, you can pick up the throttle nicely. Make sure you've got 2 wheels on the right side of this right line, otherwise it will invalidate your lap or get a penalty. This corner, my first sector honestly wasn't great. I was a 10th off my PB here, but basically this corner you brake halfway between the 100 marker and the end of this curve. You brake halfway between the two. So as you can see here, I broke about here. Like I said, halfway between the 100 marker and the end of its curve. As soon as I'm braking, you're going to see me turn to the left, try to get as close to this apex as possible, because I wanted to do an early apex here just because of how sketchy this car is on the exit. I'd rather maximize the entry and play around the throttle to get a bit of extra rotation and pick up the throttle earlier. Aim to be about 52 mile an hour on this corner, 50 to 52 mile an hour. Like I said, clip the inside curve. I forgot to mention, by the way, this third corner here, aim to be about 100, 506 mile an hour, middle of the apex there, before you get to the green bollard where you can pick up the throttle nicely. But this corner, 50 to 52 mile an hour range, play around the throttle, about 60% throttle, because that's enough of throttle that the turbo doesn't kick in, and so you won't get wheel spin / oversteer. As soon as you start to put less steering angle in, then you can pick up the throttle nicely. Use all the exit curb, make sure you rejoin the track before you get to the end of this curb as well. Rev at the end of the bar, like I said at the beginning of the lap, because you don't want to rev this car out, because that's when you start to lose power. Now, onto this chicane. By far for me on the controller, the hardest section of the track, by a mile as well, because if you do it a millimeter incorrectly, you will get a bounce on the curb and your car will stop steering, which will cost you up to half a second of a lap time, which is a lot of time, so be careful. But for this corner, I'm baking. I'll go to race photos. This is 200 marker, and then this is 150 marker down here. I'm braking around 170 meters on this corner. So I'm going to press play. I'm going to go here. In fact, it's around 165 meters here. Even though you're going faster on the straight, on the full lap compared to the start of section 2, I felt I could brake later on this corner. Maybe because I've got a bit of tyre temps. That's the only logic I really have. But anyway, I'm braking around 165 meters. Some people like to use this outside this grey track. They like to use this extra part of the track here in the braking zone. I personally did not like to do that because I felt as I went on the curbs and that, my car did stay unstabilized a bit under braking, so I wasn't able to brake as late. So I'd rather brake later and have slightly less entry angle to do this corner. So brake in a straight line, as soon as you get to first gear, start to turn to the left. I missed the big cut, so I decided to just do the small cut. So basically what I try to explain in section 2 of the video is have your right tyres. I'll actually get to race photos here, just so I can try to describe it better. So basically you want your right tyres to, at least one of your right tyres to be touching any part of this curb. So you want to have, basically by the time your front right tyre touches this orange curb, your rear right, your rear right tyre will just start to get to the exit of this red and white curb. By the time your front right tyre hits the second part of this red and white curb, your rear left tyre will start to touch the end of this red curb, and by the time your front right tyre leaves the curb, your rear left will already be on this orange curb here. So basically what I'm trying to explain is cut it as much as possible so that you don't touch this part of this curb here, and then you can open up the entry for the second part of the chicane. But because I went slightly deep here, or I turned a bit late, I think I turned a bit late from memory, I'm going to just plan to have cut as much of this curb as possible without having my right tyres touch this orange part of the curb. So basically you want your right tyres here to be right here. You want your right tyres to be right here without touching this part of the track here. So I'm going to pause it right here. As you can see, my right tyres is just on this curb here without touching this orange part of the curb. So I'm not bouncing because neither of my tyres are touching the orange part of the curb here. So from this point on, you'll see I've put about initially 30-40% throttle input, and then I very momentarily go 100% throttle as I start straightening up. But as soon as I started to straighten up, I'm already turning to the right and going to be around 55-56 mile an hour, which is enough to do the second part of the chicane here. So right here, I've just started to straighten up. As soon as I press play again, you'll see I turn to the right, cut the second part of the curb as much as possible. As long as you're I think in a full lap, I think you need at least 2 tyres touching the curb here without getting a penalty. So cut the inside curb, but not too much that will invalidate your lap. Well, either invalidate or get a 1 second penalty. And yeah, basically you want to aim to be about 56 miles an hour for this second corner of the chicane here. Play around the throttle. As soon as you start to straighten up, then go 100% throttle. Do a short line here. So get as close to this white line as possible on the right with your white tyres. Minimise the distance, but as soon as you get to this point on, make sure you angle your car towards the outside, and you want to be going in a straight line by the time you get to the 100 marker, basically. So like that. This is the 100 marker here. I'm making a car length after it. Like that. As you can see, I'm about just before a full car length ahead of this 100 marker. So I'll see 2/3 of a car length. What I'm planning to do is, if you can follow my mouse, I'm going to be turning as soon as I start to brake, and I'm trying to just clip the inside of this curb with my left tyres, and from that point on, I'm going to be downshifting to first and trail braking the corner. And I'm going to be doing that until I get to around 65-66 miles an hour. At that point, I will momentarily coast, go up to 4th gear, then go full throttle. Initially, it will be 100% brakes and turning left until you get to this first apex of this long left corner here. Like I said, downshift first just because of engine braking and rotation. As soon as you get to halfway around the corner, so just before you get to this sign here, you'll see I'm going to be going 100% throttle, and you need to be 66 miles an hour around this area. I'll pause here. From about this point onwards, make sure you don't touch the inside of the curb, because your car will oversteer if you touch this part of it curb here in this car. Also, start to steer less, because if you carry on putting 100% steering as the turbo and initial torque really kicks in, you will oversteer and you'll lose control of your car. So start to put less steering in, just so that you don't lose the stableness of a car, and that should be enough of the steering to get you around this corner without having to lift. Use all this exit curb, and I carry on turning to the left a bit here, because you want to be at least a car width off the inside of this white line, the outside white line here, just to open up the next part of the corner. About here, you either need to lift or do small trail braking. So I'd say about 2 car lengths before this orange marker on your screen appears. That's when you want to start braking and try to get as close to this inside orange barrier as possible. So about here, you want to be around 130 miles an hour. And by the time you get to this part of the barrier, you want to be around 120 miles an hour. As soon as your car starts straightening up in the braking, so initially, like you can see on screen right now, I'm about 30-40% braking input, because that's enough braking input that slows down the car without understeering off the track. If you put any more braking pressure than that, you will veer off the track. So try to do 30-40% braking input. As soon as your car starts straightening up from around this point onwards onto the barrier, as you get towards the outside of the track curb, go 100% brakes and slowly go down to around 56 miles an hour, I believe it was. I had a little bit of oversteer as I released the brakes, so just be careful on the downshift. If you downshift too aggressively, your car will oversteer and you will lose control of the car and lose a lot of time, because you'll have to sacrifice a lot of your entry speed for this corner. You can try to cut this corner and have your left tyre touch the inside curb. It might even be faster to do that, but it's a lot easier just to do it my way and have your right tyres basically touch this curb without veering off the track. This point onwards, you want to be about 60-70% throttle, just because again that's enough of a throttle where the turbo doesn't kick in and you can pick up the speed without having to oversteer. As soon as you straighten up, go 100% throttle. About half a second later, turn to the left and do small trail brake, but you want to mainly coast this corner. So this part here, you want to be about 72 miles an hour. As soon as you get to here, you can downshift first as well. It depends how much speed you're carrying though, because you don't want to unstabilize your car. But basically, you want to maximize the track width here, because then you're maximising the exit of this previous corner, but more importantly, you're opening up this left part of the corner so you can carry more apex speed and go on the throttle earlier. So try to aim to have your left tyres be on this part of the curb always, because if your left tyre goes off this curb, it will unstabilise your car a bit. So make sure your left tyre is just inside this little bump of this curb here. So about here. I am perfectly just on it. You don't really want to be any wider than that. Basically, it's try to do it in like one steering motion. So from, as you can see on my mouse here, from this point onwards, when you start turning to this first part of the left-hander here, carry on going full left all the way until you get to the apex of this corner. This corner, cut it as much as possible. Aim to be about 70 to 72 miles an hour on this corner. And again, exit around 60-70% throttle, because that's enough of a throttle where the turbo doesn't kick in, so you can pick up the throttle very nicely. And then as soon as your car starts straightening up towards the exit of the corner, by the time you know you're not going to hit the outside area, put 100% throttle input in. I had a bit of oversteer, but I very quickly corrected it. Veer off to the left until you get to this part of the track. Use the outside curb. Don't have your left tyres go off this curb, because there's a little bump here and it'll unstabilise your car as you turn into this right part of the corner. So make sure your left tyres is at least on this part of the curb here if possible, just so that you don't get affected by the bump as you start turning to the corner. But basically, you're going to do very small trail braking and turn it as soon as you get to this part of the track here where the track lines are. So I'm going to go here. I've started to turn to the right now. I've not broke anything yet. I'm revving out third. And any second now, there you go. My ABS light is showing as to get to this part of the track. So just after the start of this grey track part on this curb. I like to call it the grip line for some reason. That's just how I reference it. And what you plan to do is to get as close to this inside barrier as possible, or to have your right tyres go inside this curb here, just to, you know, open up the exit of the corner and carry as much speed as possible. You want to aim for about 107 miles an hour from memory on this corner, and you want to exit in fourth because it's more stable, and in third you'll be revving it out anyway if you would stay in third gear. Use all the track exit here. And I'm basically just about to start braking now because you can't see now, but basically as soon as this part of the barrier here, this orange barrier here, leaves your screen and bumper cam, brake. That is the perfect braking reference for this last corner in this car. And you're going to be braking all the way down to 65 miles an hour, and you want to cut it as much as possible to open up the exit so you can pick up the throttle earlier and maximise the apex speed for this corner. Exiting third, go about 70% throttle input, because again, turbo won't kick in, and as soon as your car starts straightening up towards the outside curb, go full throttle and maximise the curb usage. And that's a 1:49.937, which is in the top 10 in the world as of the recording of this video, about 3 days after the circuit experience was released from the Spec 3 update. So I'm now going to show you ways to rewatch these laps, because I'm going to share all the section 1, section 2, section 3 and the full lap of this video, so that you can collect those replays and use the data logger feature in the game, so you can compare your times to my times on the racing lines I'm doing, the braking points I'm doing, the throttle inputs I'm doing, etc., the speed I'm carrying into each corner. It's a very useful tool to use, and it's a very good way of comparing what you are doing differently to everyone else. I would appreciate a like and a subscribe as well if you found this helpful. But now I'm going to show you how to do each of my replays here. But most importantly, I hope you enjoy doing this, because I found this very fun. The more fun you have, the more better you tend to drive, because you're not overthinking stuff, you're just playing for fun. As long as you follow my references, you should be able to do this track very well. So I hope you've learned a lot on what to do on this track, at least in the circuit experience with these track limits. I know for the current lap time challenge video, the track limits is completely different, because basically as soon as you have 4 tyres off the right line, it automatically invalidates your lap time, and you cannot touch a bollard. In circuit experience, and I believe it'll be like this for daily races as well, or GTWS, as long as you've got at least 2 tyres on the curb or within the right lines, it will not invalidate your lap, or you won't get a penalty. So now I'm going to show you how to view my replays. Cheers. Hello again, guys. So to see the replays of the circuit experience sections and the full lap from what I've just shown you in the video, you go to showcase in the bottom left here. Go to content search, which is the first section down on this discover bit. Go to replays. If you're in the Ferrari 296 GT3, click on it, and then go to keyword, and I would recommend putting my name in, since I tag everything with my name in it. Then here, you've got section 1 here, you've got section 2 here, section 3 here, and the full up here. It will also say the times added each section and the full up here. I would also recommend to add it to collection as well, because that is the only way you'll be able to see my references compared to your references using the data logger, which I'll go into now. So to get to the circuit experience, you go to World Circuits, which is towards the middle left of the home screen. And then you're going to go onto Europe/Middle East, which is here. Yas Marina, which is in Middle East. So bottom right of the Middle East section of the Europe section here. Go to circuit experience, which is here on the bottom of the screen, in between change your car and time trial. Click on it. You get 200k credits for getting all bonds, and you get 1 million credits for all gold. So you can get a total of 1.2 million credits just by following my guide here. Get a 1 lap attack here, for example, and then as you can see at the moment, I'm in current 6th place in the world with this lap time, even though my sector 2 wasn't the best. But I've pretty much perfected this track in my opinion. If I was to nail S2, I could maybe even beat Antonio, to be honest, but it'd be very close. But anyway, that is how to perfect this track anyway. But now, with this data logger, basically, you'd have, from the items, make sure you collect your replay, because if you've just saved your replay, it's not added to your collection. So make sure you add it to collection, and then just click on, either your replay or my replay. Since I've only got my replay, you'd click on my replay. Let me just pause it here, and then with your lap, you just add your lap from your items here, and then that way you can compare the rating lines here and the speed I'm taking each part of the track here. So, for example, if my lap was here on the blue line, my references is the blue line, yours is the yellow line. That way you'll be able to see when I start to slow down on this line here. Make sure with your controller anyway, with your R3, if you move it to the right, you zoom it in. If you move it to the left, you zoom it out. I recommend to have this zoomed in personally, just so you can as accurately as possible follow the speeds I'm taking each section. So here, the top of the line shows you that I've started to brake for this corner. This jagged line here on this racing line graph here shows you when I've started to brake for this corner. So follow that through. Dash line is when I've started to basically coast this corner, so I'm not losing speed, I'm not gaining speed, I'm just hovering around this speed. This white line is when I've started to pick up, not the white line, this single blue line here shows you when I've started to pick up the speed again. So by the time I get a quarter of the way around turn 1, I already start to pick up the throttle, as you can see here. You can basically use that to compare when you start to pick up the throttle from your lap compared to when I start to pick up the throttle on my lap. And then you can compare the apex speeds, you can compare where I've started to brake, and you can compare where I've started to pick up the throttle compared to what you've done on your lap as well. So without further ado, I will now go into the best attempted section 1, section 2, section 3, and the full lap with no commentary in the background. It's just me and my driving, just so you can clearly see what I'm doing on my lap, and then you can try to follow that reference as close as possible to your driving, and hopefully you can get a very good time on the Yas Marina circuit. But without further ado, I'm gonna finish the talking part of this video now. So without further ado, I would appreciate you liking and subscribe. I'm planning to do the Montreal circuit experience at some point. I don't know when. I'll do it at some point in the near future though. There's a good chance I'll be doing how to master daily race next week as well, because I reckon it will probably be a Group 3 car at one of the new updated tracks, so either Montreal or this Yas Marina circuit, and then I can talk about how to tie save, etc. on those tracks. But without further ado, I'm now going to show you the best attempts from Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, and the full lap. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy the driving that I'm about to show you, and hopefully you learn from it. One more thing, if you want any help with any corners or anything, just put them in the comments below and I'll answer to the best of my ability. But without further ado, see you later, have fun, good luck, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.